Well, welcome back, everybody. My name is Ricardo Sandoval-Palos. I'm the founding editor of Palabra, the digital magazine from the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. And we're doing these commemorative conversations for the 40th anniversary of NAHJ, which will be celebrated back in Hollywood, where it all began. So today we have two great journalists who I think represent a kind of a new frontier for us at Palabra and at NAHJ. And first of all, we have with us Bianca Graulau. She's an independent journalist who reports on colonialism and its effect on people and environment in her native Puerto Rico. Welcome, Bianca.
Hi, my pleasure to be here.
Also with us is Jeannette Ceja, an award-winning travel journalist, show host, travel advisor, and public speaker. She's spoken about travel on global news shows like the BBC World News and newscasts in cities across the United States. Welcome, Jeannette.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here as well.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why we brought both of you together for this conversation is because I'm convinced that you represent a new frontier for NHJ and for Palabra. And it really strikes me that a lot of our people can gain something from hearing you guys talk a little bit about your journeys. You know, as our industry unfortunately shrinks in so many ways, particularly at the local and regional level, there is a growing interest, not just in freelancing the way we used to think about it, but in building your own kind of media presence. And I think both of you guys have done this pretty well in your respective fields. And I really want to know, I mean, first of all, it can't have been easy. What are the challenges, and how do you think the Latino community of journalists has been perhaps influential or at least somewhat helpful in getting you to where you are today?
So I can start if you're okay with that. I will say that my work now is the product of many years in local newsrooms. I got started there, got my experience there, got into that rhythm of doing one story a day for the local newscast. And you had to have that story done no matter what for the 5 or the 6 p.m. So that experience definitely me pulió, as we say. It polished me as a reporter, as a journalist. And then as things kept evolving, it was clear to me that if we wanted to continue to reach out to people in general, but especially to a younger generation, we needed to meet them where they were. So it wasn't an easy process to do that transition, but it was easy to understand how to speak to people in their own language. At least for me, it was easy because I was consuming news online. The reality is that at that point, I was getting my information from online, so it was native to me. You know, as a millennial, it was very easy for me to understand why people went to social media to get their news. And I knew that there was a possibility to do really good journalism on these platforms, that even if it's a platform that initially wasn't associated with serious news, we could do serious journalism with the highest standards on social media. So the transition itself wasn't easy in the sense that I had to now figure out a way to make a living for myself, to do all the things that the newsroom would normally take care of. But when it comes to being able to speaking the language online, it seemed very natural.
For me, I would watch a lot of the television shows that were available, of course, after doing my homework, after school. And then I changed the channel to the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel. And I remember Sofia Vergara was a co-host of a travel show in the 90s. And this was amazing because I was like, wow, there's a woman. She was doing this travel series in Spanish. And then I saw Samantha Brown, who's on PBS now, who's doing her travel shows. And I saw another woman in this space. So those were kind of markers for me of, wow, maybe I want to focus on this, like travel, showing people the world. The news will tell us what's going on in a timely manner, but I also want to show what, the language, the culture, the food, the gastronomy, that really inspired me in another way. As a communicator, as a journalist, I saw that as a possibility. And then when I was a teenager, we went on a trip to Europe with my grandmother, and my late grandmother. Her last wish before she was going to have dialysis was to see the Vatican. And she was very Catholic, and this was a huge deal for her. So I remember going on that trip and how special it was to see her dream come true of seeing the Vatican. And I had a little notebook with me. I had a disposable camera and a pen. So that's how I started my first travel journal. So it started as a very young age for me, and I'm still writing now. Better equipment, a laptop, better camera. But I think that really helped set me up for when I entered college and I wanted to focus on journalism. The program that I entered at Belmont was Convergence. So they taught us from day one, you need to understand online, you need to understand radio, TV, print, because you never know when you might need to use any or at all. So I think for me, that kind of helped me prepare what I do now, which is a lot of online, print, and broadcast.
And I'm curious, Jeannette, so what inspired you to sort of start using social media as that platform where you could, so to speak, be your own boss and be able to choose the content that you wanted to be covering and the way in which you wanted to cover it? What inspired you to use social media as a tool like that?
For me, I remember Facebook using in college back in the day, and I would share about my travels. But my very first Instagram post was back in 2012 when I was working in Australia. So I was already working abroad and living abroad, and I would just showcase and share stories like what I was doing in Australia. So I think for me, it's really helped me to show a bigger audience and share about, different cities, for example, like going to the Great Barrier Reef, meeting the locals. I think for me, and I still have Instagram, it's still one of my favorite and biggest platforms to this day. Now it's changed over the past decade or so. And it's a huge platform for travel. Yeah.
And it might be helpful for us to share a little bit about how we've been able to sustain this. I can speak about my own experience. And I know that I wouldn't be able to do this at all. And I wouldn't have been able to do it for this long if I didn't have the support of my community and the support of people who not only give me their attention, their shares, their likes, but support me monetarily. So when they saw that I was doing journalism that was different and it was something that they felt was necessary and they wanted more people to see it, I asked for their support and they gave it to me. And that's how I've been able to do it so far. It's not always easy. The reality is that I don't have the resources that big newsrooms have, but I've been able to do this now for almost 4 years, which is crazy. So I feel a strong sense of community and people behind me. It feels like it's not just my journalism, but people fuel my journalism with their tips, with their information, with bringing my attention to specific issues. And then I do what I do, which I think is my great honor, to be able to research a topic, talk to people about how it affects their lives, and then be able to use my creativity to put that together and tell that story forward. So tell me a little bit about how you've been able to sustain this work.
For me, community is definitely very important. I think being a woman as well who travels, and did my first solo travel when I was 19, and I went to study abroad in Sicily, in Italy. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. I didn't know Italian, but it's kind of, for me, after doing so many solo trips, that being the first one, it really gave me that confidence also as a woman to do it, to go in these spaces where I'm uncomfortable, where I don't know anyone or anything. But for me, I've had a lot of jobs, different jobs in different areas. Like I've had TV, I still do freelance, which I think is always going to be great and evergreen. There's a lot of different publications, both print and digital, that a lot of writers and journalists can contribute to. And some are doing really, really great, and some are just doing it on the side. Some are doing it full time. So for me, that's always been constant, is freelance. But all that said, that all happened, I would say, over 12 years, very slowly and gradually. There's that saying in Hollywood, they say an overnight success is 8 to 10 years of just hard work, constantly pitching stories, ideas, taking gigs, but the focus for me was always travel.
And you made a really good point about how this does not happen overnight. Sometimes people will come across your content because something went viral or you were on a particular platform that was big and that's how they learned about you, and they might think that from one day to the next you were shot in front of a bunch of people, but the reality is that this is the result of consistent work for many years. Like I say, I wouldn't be able to do the reporting I do now if I didn't put in those many years of hard work doing the journalism, the local journalism I did in different communities far away from home. And I wouldn't have my platforms where they are today if I hadn't spent the last, I would say, 8 years. Like for about 8 years, I've been practicing how to make content online that grabs people's attention, but that is complete, that has context, that has been fact checked. So it's the result of a lot of work, a lot of trial and error, a lot of making mistakes and having to correct them, learning from them, and also paying close attention to what's out there, how the trends are moving, how people are consuming information. You mentioned Facebook. Facebook is where I started creating content 8 years ago too, for social media. And that was a different kind of editing. And I was just seeing what was out there, what I was personally consuming, what was grabbing my attention, and how I could adjust my journalism to those formats. And then, Instagram, I was late to Instagram and I had to figure out how to use that. And then TikTok came along and that was a whole other ball game. And then I had to learn how to do YouTube, which is not the same as what you do on TikTok. So it is the result of a lot of consistent work. And if there's anything that I want young people to know, especially those who are considering doing journalism on their own on social media, is that it will take a long time of putting in a lot of work in order to be able to do this long term. So what would you say? What would you say to young people who might want to do something similar to what you do?
What I would say is very similar. It's, plant those seeds, like whatever it is that you want to do. If you don't see someone doing it, like it's exactly what you want to, like I want to be the next Samantha Brown, right? Next woman travel host that I saw growing up for 10 years on TV. And I said, I'm going to be the next Latina Samantha Brown. And a really good friend who actually has a travel show, he told me, he goes, you don't have to be the next anything. You are you, and you will be the Jeannette Ceja, and then maybe someone will watch you and you will inspire them, and it'll have a ripple effect. They'll be like, oh wow, there's a woman out and she's doing that, and she's Latina, and it can inspire future generations, which is something that the young inner girl in me watching always was always looking for what I'm becoming, because I didn't see it. But that journey was a very long journey, full of success and failures and rejection. But I'm ever so grateful for it. I'm really grateful because I appreciate it so much now. And what I tell, for example, students is I say, work hard, plant the seeds, work on your skill set, of course. If you're going to J school, journalism school, that's great. And do internships, because internships will help show you in real time, the real world, how it is. And I also tell them, one thing that I really had to learn in my 20s was personal development, was my mindset, was something that I had to learn. It's if I knew then what I know now, wow, I would have so much more confidence and self-awareness. I just was so shy and I limited myself and I was afraid to be seen because it was so uncomfortable. But part of, growing is being constantly uncomfortable. So that's what I would tell, college students is, keep working on whatever it is you want, do as many internships, study abroad is something that I highly recommend if it's possible for, there's different scholarships, there's different programs. For me, I would say travel as much as you can. I've also worked abroad. There's international internships, and there's a lot of possibilities for students. I would say, go out there, don't limit yourself. I also would say seek mentors.
Well, that's a really good way to close it. Hey, I want to thank the two of you for this great conversation, which I think is going to live well on the NAHJ commemorative page, and also as a feature on Palabra.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.